few people ask about jumping into tuck and doing a tutorial on how to jump from downward dog to a handstand tuck, which is one of the first ways that I was able to do a handstand away from the wall. I think it's really important that you understand with the tuck that your hips are playing a huge role, and there's an anterior and posterior tilt to your hips. So the best way to illustrate this is probably in cat and cow. So when we are in cat and we say tuck the tailbone, when you bring a curve into the lumbar spine and the tailbone tucks under, that is a posterior tilt. So the front of your pelvis is coming forward, the sacrum is dropping down, that's our posterior tilt. An anterior tilt is when the tailbone tips up and the front of the pelvis comes towards the top of the thigh bone. This is different when you're standing up versus when you're in a forward fold, which I'm kind of in a forward fold right now because I've got my knees at a 90-degree angle to my torso. But just keep in mind, posterior, anterior. If you have flexibility in your hamstrings, you are much more able to come into an anterior tilt because your hamstrings attach to the base of your pelvis. When you forward fold, your pelvis is tipping forward and you're able to come easily and deeply into a forward fold. I'm not because I have tighter hamstrings. My body compensates for that by gaining more mobility in the lumbar spine. So when I come into a posterior tilt in the pelvis, my lumbar spine and my middle back, my thoracic spine, is doing more of the work. From years and years of forward folding, having to use the mobility of my spine as opposed to the mobility of my pelvis, I naturally can come into a full flexion of the spine more easily than someone that has tight hamstrings, or loose hamstrings. Doesn't mean if you have flexibility in your hamstrings you can't do it, it's just your body is not used to it. So you really have to train your body and build a muscle memory to create that fully flexed shape of the spine. And jumping into a tuck, I think, is a great way to do that if you know what you're trying to achieve. So if we are in a downward dog, when we cue downward dog as a teacher, I often say tailbone out, thighs back. And that's cueing anterior tilt of the pelvis. Personally, I have to bend my knees to loosen up some slack in my hamstrings to really get that anterior tilt. My natural tendency is for a posterior tilt, which is what I'm doing right now. And you can see actually it comes into my whole spine when I do it. So if you're in downward dog, you're working your downward dog. If you want to start to feel out that posterior tilt, do the action, cue the tailbone up, and then try to come into a complete reversal of that movement and maybe even come forward a little bit into the hands and then back. So we're basically doing like a cat-cow, but in our handstand. It's a little bit different here because my thighs are at a different angle relative to my torso. So practice that movement in the back body. And then maybe move it into coming forward into a plank. Keep that posterior tilt. Keep that tuck of the tailbone. And then come back. Tuck, hollowing out the front body. Roll forward, pressing the floor away, rounding the upper back. And back. So what I often see when I see people tucking or jumping to tuck from handstand or from downward dog is they jump and they stick their butt back. Do that again. Jump. Butt back, knees out. That's especially again if you have length in your hamstrings, that might be your more natural tendency to jump. You don't have a lot of control there. You might be finding the stacking. You might find some balance, but your core, your front core, and your back body is not turned on. All you're doing is finding a balance of weight, front to back. What we want to try for this is to jump into that tuck, but be in total control of that hollow body shape. So when we practice rolling forward, we're building that muscle memory. So now if I come back, bend into the knees, tuck the tailbone, create that hollow body shape, wrap my triceps, and then I'm going to hop. You might not be able to find the balance as quickly. Your butt's not going as high, but you've got the control. And maybe eventually we're hopping and we find some hold. Notice my shoulders are past my wrists. That has to happen in order to find the balance here. My knees are together, they're hugging in, and I come back. Always land bent knee, slightly bent elbow. Do it again. So practice rock forward muscle memory. Come back. Tuck tailbone, wrap triceps. Hop. And come back. If you find the hold, you can try to come up into handstand. Squeezing everything together. And take a child's pose. The reason I like learning handstand like this, it's away from the wall, so you're not relying on the wall, building some possibly bad habits. It's actually a lot less scary because when you're practicing, all of your weight stays forward, or actually I guess back. If I'm going like this, it's really hard for me to fall that way. If I'm going to fall, I'm going to fall this way. Maybe I might get a little overzealous and my hands walk forward, but still my weight's closer to the ground. I'm less likely to flip, less likely to twist and tweak a shoulder. So it allows you to build the strength, control, and awareness in a slightly safer position. If this is just totally not working for you, it might not be the right way for your body, but it's what worked for me, and I hope that it can help some other people out there. If you have any questions, if this doesn't make sense, please let me know, and